Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path. Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing, and an affable and fun and full of laughs opportunity to talk with Corby Jones, all-time great Missouri quarterback who led the turnaround of Missouri football after years in the desert. Missouri had 13 consecutive losing seasons before they posted a winning record in his junior year. He generated Heisman buzz heading into his senior year, overcame the loss of his dad and emotional times there to propel Missouri to an even better record the next year. He has all kinds of records from the Missouri Tigers days, went on to a brief stint in professional football, and then became a lawyer, something he never really decided to do. His youth story is also a very interesting one. His father was a football coach after playing for a bit in the National Football League, moved all around the country in that particular aspect. Born in Columbia, Missouri, ended up finishing high school in Columbia, Missouri, but in between is an incredible journey as well. All kinds of interesting stories and challenges met and overcome by Corby Jones. He is the subject of a really enjoyable, as well, they all are, but certain ones put a smile on your face. Obviously, I have one now. Corby Jones, coming up next as our Kansas City profile presented by Easton Roofing. Enjoy the ride.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Did you experience hail damage last year and never got the work done? Most insurance companies only give you a year to get the roof fixed. And if you don't get it done, you could possibly not be compensated in full for the replacement of your roof. If you've been procrastinating getting that damaged roof taken care of, give us a call at 913-257-5426, and we'll send out an expert to help you through the process. We're never pushy, we're just here to help. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
It's always a pleasure to catch up with Dr. Brad Woodle from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. There are 8 locations all around Kansas City, including the newest one in Raytown.
In Raytown. We just joined Raytown July 1st. We took over for a retiring doctor, Dr. David Frey, and we are just honored to see all of his patients and take care of the Raytown community.
And communities all around Kansas City with the best of care in a wide variety of fashions.
We do chiropractic using multiple techniques, acupuncture, disc decompression therapy, cold laser therapy, different physiotherapies, exercises, whatever you need for your bones, muscles, joints, and nerve pain, we can help.
Find that help at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, 8 locations all around Kansas City. Visit ASFCA.com. If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business to Kansas City's #1 variety podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you. Corby, you sort of have a circle of life with Columbia, Missouri, that's for sure. You were born there, but and eventually would cycle back there to spend your last 2 years of high school. But the road from the beginning to back to Columbia was certainly one that was sort of like being in the Army, I guess, a little bit, right?
Absolutely. The first question people ask me, were you a military brat? I said, no, not really. My dad was a pro and college football coach, so it was very similar lifestyle. Because back then, unlike today, your assistant coaches are all tied to your head coach. There's not an existing contract with the university or with the team. So the head coach hires, if head coach gets fired, head coach gets a buyout, and you better go find a job.
Absolutely the case, and I remember it, and it's still somewhat the case, but especially back in the day, you'd look at an assistant coach, even a coach who was very highly regarded and at that point would be at a great thing, and he'd have like 12, 14 jobs on his resume. I mean, that was not uncommon at all. And talk about your journey and what it was like being a boy once you became aware of what was going on.
Well, it was interesting. I was always the more outgoing of the three kids. And so it was always exciting for me to move. So great, let's move. That's fine, no problem. My brother, who was 3 years older, didn't have as easy of a time moving, and because making friends and making friends, losing friends, leaving friends, that type of thing, it's more difficult as you get a little bit older. But we moved when my dad was on Coach Onofrio's staff at Mizzou. First of all, both of my parents went to Mizzou, both from St. Louis, and my dad always loved Mizzou. He loved his time there, and so he always wanted to get back there if at all possible. But early on in his coaching career, he was on Coach Onofrio's staff at Mizzou. He recruited Howard Richards, Kellen Winslow, those guys. And there's still a lot of bitterness on my part, because after knowing the history of Mizzou football and knowing how good they were, Coach Onofrio and their staff doesn't get half the credit that's due, because no one won but for their players. That was Powers.
Right.
Powers came in, and after Onofrio, and they had good teams, and they won, but he never won with his own players. So as soon as all of my dad and that staff's kids graduated, that's when it went downhill, and that's when you started the coaching carousel. So the Coach Onofrio may be the most underrated Mizzou coach in history. But back to my story. They got fired in '77. I was 1 year old, and we moved to New Hampshire. Dad took a job at Dartmouth, and while at Dartmouth, the USFL started, and my dad said, "You know what? I'll take a run at this and see what happens." And the Boston Breakers became one of the teams, and Dad took a job with the Breakers, and so. But my mom said, "You know what? We'll keep the kids here. We'll stay in New Hampshire, and you can just commute, because it's not that. It's not that far. We don't see them during season. During like training and whatnot." That often to begin with, and so he decided that he'd commute. A year in, after the first season, which was fun. They played at Boston Civic Stadium, and I remember going to Civic Stadium, and Burt Reynolds owned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I remember being up and in the suite, and my sister sitting on Burt Reynolds' lap through the whole game, and it was it was just a neat experience as a kid. But then after 1 year, the team moved to New Orleans. And so at that point, my mom said, "Okay, we're moving." So we moved to New Orleans. 8 months later, the team says we're moving to Portland. So we moved to Portland, and ended up staying in Portland for 5 years, even though the league folded. My dad was coaching at Pacific University down in, I can't remember what the little town is in Oregon. But he was coaching there, and then Forrest Gregg got the head coaching job at SMU, first staff after the death penalty.
Right.
And so one of the guys, the defense coordinator for the Breakers, the former defense coordinator of the Breakers, Dale Lindsay, got the D coordinator job at SMU and hired my dad. And so we moved to Dallas. And so that was where I'd say I grew up. Mm-hmm. And then after my sophomore year, I was freshman of the year in the district. I was coming back to be the starting quarterback on a team that we finished third in the state in Big School 5A. So we'd beaten Dallas Kimball, who had beaten Dallas Carter. These are, if you know Texas high school football, these are big names. And Carter beat Permian. Permian played Kimball. Kimball beat Permian. We beat Kimball at Texas Stadium. And then we went down to Waco and played Temple, who was the eventual state champion. And I came in at the second half of that game. I started safety as a sophomore, and I was a second string quarterback because we kept winning. And we always thought that I was going to come in and take over at quarterback midway through the season. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we were winning, so there's no sense making a change. But he was actually more of a runner, and I was a better passer. Clearly I could run, but I was a better passer than he was, and he was an all-district wide receiver as well the year before. So halfway through that game, we're getting beat by Temple, and we got to throw the ball. So I come in at quarterback, and I throw 3 touchdowns. And so we're ranked in the top 10 going into my junior year where I'm going to be the starter. Dad takes the job back at Missouri because Coach Devine, who my dad played for at Mizzou, and with the Green Bay Packers, called my dad and said, I need to get some Mizzou people in here. We need to get some of our own back here. And so anything Coach Devine wanted, my dad was going to do. And so that was kind of how that went. And so we're getting phone calls. We probably had 20 families calling our house, some of whom I didn't really even know, asking me to live with their house for 2 years. So that's how Texas high school football works. But my parents gave me the option and said, hey, you know what? If you want to stay, you can stay. And my best friend to this day, that's who I would have lived with. I would have lived with their family because I lived with them most of the time since we were 12 years old anyway. And so that's Joe Price is his name, and his mom, Julie, who's my second mom. And they would have been happy to have me stay with them for 2 years. But my parents gave me the decision, and I said, you know what, the family's moving, I'm going to move. And so I said, you know what, let's go see what this is like. And it was, if you know Texas high school football, when I first showed up at Columbia Hickman, I looked at the stadium and I said, okay, that's a cool practice field. Where's the real stadium? So it was a bit of a culture shock. For lack of a better word.
Yes, indeed. But obviously you had success there. And it sounds like, as you said, you were outgoing. You embraced all these different changes and moves, just like maybe an assistant football coach would do. So this was something that you considered all through your childhood and into your teen years a positive, and something that you did with a smile on your face?
Pretty much. I mean, it was, for me, it was a new opportunity. And so I said, you know what, let's go for it. Let's see how this goes, see how it works. And it was exciting, and it was always, I hated to leave from a sports standpoint, but I felt like, I want to be close to the family, and I want to be where everyone else is. And so that was kind of my deal. The only reason to stay would have been sports and would have been football. But I'm close to the people that I was close to there. And if you move at 16, then you have your friends set, and you remain friends. You remain in contact.
Right. Well, you had great success, obviously, at Hickman. You're an all-state quarterback and had great success, obviously, despite playing in a substandard stadium. And so then, obviously, you're a highly recruited player, and you're being recruited by Nebraska. And a lot of people are thinking, even though you're a hometown guy, you don't have the lengthy roots in Columbia, that maybe you're going to be the successor to Tommy Frazier.
And that was kind of almost media created, because we played Rockbridge, which was the first time Hickman played their rival Rockbridge in, I think it was 13 years. And Rockbridge had won the state championship in 4A the year before. And so there was just a big buzz about this. And I remember the papers asking me the week before, there's supposed to be 9,000 to 10,000 people at this game. How are you gonna handle that? And I'm going, well, a year or 2 years ago when I was in Dallas, I was playing in front of 20,000 every week. So that's not gonna be the impact, the changing factor here. So, but that game happened to be one of my best games in high school, and happened to be the same week Mizzou was playing Nebraska. Nebraska was coming to Columbia, so. Up at the Turner Gill, who was the coordinator at Nebraska at the time and was recruiting me, was in the press box during that game, and so that was kind of a coming out party. So people were making a big deal out of that. So that was a spin. But I knew, I had a pretty good idea that if I were not gonna stay home, if I were not gonna go to Mizzou, I was going to leave the conference. So I was actually closer to going to Illinois than I was to Nebraska. I just, from a recruiting standpoint, I wasn't going to do anything that was going to damage my dad. And
right.
if you can't keep your kid home, then I mean, I need to give him an excuse. You know, it's like, okay, he wanted to get out of the conference. He didn't want